Hello, and welcome to episode 163 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. I'm the host, Kim Newlove. We're talking about professional headshots for pharmacists today. What is a professional headshot? Why do you need one? And more. If you're new to the Pharmacist Voice podcast, welcome. Again, my name is Kim Newlove, and I'm the host. I have a background as a pharmacist, but I made a career transition to voice actor and podcast host. Among other things, I narrate audiobooks for women pharmacist authors, provide medical narration to clients in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries, and narrate content for explainer videos and e learning projects. I was inspired by my nonverbal son, who has autism, to combine my background as a pharmacist with my speaking voice and launch my business, The Pharmacist Voice, in 2017. My son, Craig, taught me the power of having a voice and using it. My solo podcast episodes are about some aspect of being a pharmacist, a voice actor, a pharmacist podcaster, or my career transition from pharmacist to voice actor and podcast host. My interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that you are inspired to use your voice too. This is episode 163, and you can find the show notes on my website. Go to thepharmacistvoice.com, just click on the podcast tab and select episode 163. Now, this episode also has a YouTube component. So if you go to thepharmacistvoice.com, just click on the YouTube icon at the top, either on the desktop or mobile version, and you will find this podcast episode. Let's dive in. We're talking about professional headshots for pharmacists today. This is something that I happen to know something about because I have made a career transition. And during that transition, I've had to make a website, business cards, all kinds of things. And I have needed visual collateral. I have needed headshots and branding photos. So let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen if you're on the YouTube version. If you're just listening to the audio, you're going to get a lot out of this as well. Here we go. This episode contains my views and experiences. Please take them with a grain of salt. If you research professional headshots or best practices for headshots, you're going to find other opinions. This episode is meant to help you if you're new to getting a professional headshot, especially if you're a pharmacist. What is a professional headshot? In my own words, it's a head and shoulders portrait of you. It's a high resolution digital image of you from the shoulders to the top of your head. Why should you get a professional headshot? It's because first impressions earn trust. Our first impression nowadays in the digital age is made digitally. So our first impression is made digitally now. So we need to look our best in the first place that we're seen, which is often social media, especially LinkedIn. This is your chance to guide the narrative of who you are. And it's a great opportunity. You get to show the world who you are without saying anything at all. That is what a professional headshot does. I am a pharmacist by training, and I got to admit, and you know this too, if you're a pharmacist listening, pharmacists are not typically comfortable with self promotion and being in front of a camera. If getting a headshot makes you a little uncomfortable, you're normal, but get in front of the camera anyways. Maybe you have a website and you need your picture on it. Maybe you're the store manager of a community practice pharmacy and you need your picture at the front of the store. No matter what your reason, there's a lot of whys. Just get out there and get it done. How do you get a professional headshot? When I was creating my business, I didn't know where to go. I ended up looking on Facebook in a community group for where I live in Northwest Ohio, and I found the name of a photographer brought up again and again. And that photographer was Vanity Studios in Perrysburg, Ohio. The name of my photographer is Josh Ball. You can look him up on LinkedIn. He does a fantastic job. Thanks, Josh. What if you need to get a professional headshot in your geographic location? I would say that there's a lot of things to think about. You can go to Google, Well, of course, you could come out to Perrysburg, Ohio, but you could go to Google and you can Google professional headshot photography and look at the gallery from that photographer, see if you like their work. Okay. Or you can get a personal reference. You can talk to a friend of yours whose photography you like, ask them where they went, and maybe consider going there as well. No matter what you do, once you find someone, definitely look at their work. If they have a gallery online, that is ideal. See if you like their work, the poses that they shoot, the lighting that they use, and so on. Things that you need to think about if you're going to call them up ahead of time, which I recommend, and ask a few questions. You're going to want to find out if they're easy to work with. Find out, is it easy to schedule with them? Is their studio easy to get to? Do they provide high resolution images? I assume people that are out there as professional headshot photographers do not take pictures with their phones. But hey, unless you ask, sometimes they don't tell. Okay. Now, you also want a photographer that's going to be willing to give you a photo release, meaning you're going to be allowed to use whatever photos you get for whatever you want to use them for on your website, social media, and other reasonable sources. So, I will give you a list of where you can use your professional headshot just a little bit later, but I want to get you thinking that you can't just necessarily book somebody off of Google without checking them out first. You definitely want to check out their rates and samples of their works and other things. Like, do they have a makeup artist in house that you can collaborate with? There's a lot to think of, but definitely want to think about the things that I've named. I will put that list in the show notes. And one other thing, you may want to go to their actual studio and see if it's clean and if you feel comfortable there. Now, where can you use your professional headshot? This is a great question. And there are so many answers. I love this question because I personally can speak from my experience. I have used my professional headshot on social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, of course. But you can also use your professional headshot on your business card. You can use it on your website. You can use it on what I call swag, which is stuff we all get, swag, like a t shirt or maybe even a coffee cup. You can also use your professional headshot on your resume. Maybe you want to develop some of your professional headshots and have them hanging in your office. Or if you own a pharmacy, maybe you want a picture on the outside of the building or at the front door to advertise what you look like. And one thing that not a lot of people think about is conference apps. Say you go to APHA, or maybe you go to the Ohio Pharmacists Association annual conference. Like, I live in Ohio, so I do that. And it is so quick and easy to just upload my headshot, my professional headshot to the conference app so everybody knows what I look like. And they get that first impression. That's a good impression when they see my picture. Let's move on. If you're watching the YouTube version, I have some great examples of ways that I have used my headshot. They include on my website for social media promotion when I have an audiobook release. I'm an audiobook narrator. And also for my podcast episode artwork. I have more examples than I care to share on the YouTube video. But if you look at my solo podcast episodes, I use professional headshots as part of my episode artwork. When or how often should you get a professional headshot? My suggestion is every 1 to 2 years, every 1 to 2 years. And why do I say that? Because my personal appearance has kind of changed over the past few years. During the pandemic, I've gained weight, my hair color has changed, all kinds of things. But for you, definitely get a new headshot whenever your outward appearance changes. If you cut your hair very short and you're a woman with long hair, you want to make sure you're preparing whoever's going to see that picture for how you're going to look when you present in person. Let's think of an example here. Maybe you are a professional speaker. You're a pharmacist who goes to conferences and you professionally speak. The picture that you give them to put in the bulletin or the program, is going to need to be close to what you're going to look like when you present on stage. Again, this is my personal opinion. Take it with a grain of salt, but you don't want to use something from 20 years ago when you joined a university or started your employment. You want to get something that's current and up to date. And again, remember though, this is your chance to make a good first impression. So definitely use that. Have a current photo. Moving on. How much does a professional headshot cost? Sometimes cost is a barrier to doing anything. Do your research, talk to the photographer ahead of time, find out what their fee schedule is, find out if you can afford them. Now, I have found that headshot photography for me is fairly affordable, and the costs kind of depend on what all you're having done. And if you're watching on the YouTube version, I've got a lot of different pictures here, and that's because I often combine my headshot photography with my family photography. And if you're watching the YouTube version, I've got family pictures, but not only do I get my headshot done, my husband gets his headshot done too. So if you look at the YouTube version, you'll get to see his headshot as well. So depending on what you do, maybe there's a deal where if you get 5 images, one of your family, one of each of your kids, one of your husband and yourself, maybe there's a package deal that you can work with. I've also combined my headshot photography with branding photos. Combining sessions can sometimes save money. I even had an on location at my house videography session where I was on camera for a job. And afterwards, the videographer was kind enough to take some pictures of me, some branding pictures as well, all included in the same price. And one of the pictures that he took is what I consider one of the most iconic pictures of me that's got me with my background that I often use for Zoom and other meetings. It's got my computer, my microphone, some headphones, and an audio interface. It's a great picture. I have had lots of branding photo sessions combined with my headshot photography sessions. And if you're watching the YouTube video, you're getting to see a whole bunch of pictures. Definitely an incentive. Now, I often combine my headshot photography with makeup as well. My makeup artist is named Christina. She does a fantastic job. Sometimes when I have a session like at home and I'm on camera for something, I do my own makeup. When I go in person to the studio to Josh, and he's taking our photos, Josh and Christina are partners, and Christina does my makeup prior to a headshot. She has not done it one time and it turned out fine, but I just want to caution you that if you add on makeup, it's not often, included in your photography. It is an additional cost. Now, how many other hidden costs might there be? Well, if you need a haircut, it's going to cost you additional money. If you're a gentleman and you get your beard professionally groomed, that will cost extra money as well. And as we found out on episodes 161 and 162 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast, you can hire a personal stylist or an image consultant to help you too. So these are all costs. And that just leads me to my next statement, which is how much does it really cost? It just depends. It depends on what all you combine it with. I think my very first headshot and makeup, just one single headshot I think it was probably more than $100 with the makeup and the headshot all together. So I hope that helps. I'm just trying to share my experience. Now, let's say you've gone to the trouble of getting these professional headshots done. You need to protect them. You heard it here first. You have to store them properly. I would put them in multiple places, not just one. I would store mine on the cloud. I store mine on the hard drive of my computer, probably 2 computers actually. I store my headshot pictures on a flash drive. I also have them on Dropbox and Google Drive. Do I seem paranoid? Maybe, but they're very important to me. So I store them. If you want to hear more about headshots and how to use them and where to store them, I do have an episode about my press kit, my 2022 press kit. That's episode 140 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. It came out March 18th, 2022. Check that out. All right, let's talk about what should you wear for your headshot. For my first ever professional headshot, what I did to learn what to wear was I went to the photographer's website and I looked at his portrait gallery. And what I found was that there was a lot of classic looks. My photographer, Josh at Vanity Studios, does a lot of classic corporate professional headshots. They're not all pharmacists, of course, but the classics are the classics. Traditional is often a great way to go. A white shirt, a black blazer. That's what I did for my first ever professional headshot. It worked out great. Now, if you like Pinterest, you could go to Pinterest and get some ideas. Or, as we learned in episodes 161 and 162 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast, you can hire a personal stylist and image consultant like Dr. Leslie Hodge or Dr. Danielle Perrodin. If you didn't listen to those episodes, those are both pharmacists who understand issues that pharmacists deal with, so I bring that up because not only can they help you look great for a professional headshot, but they can help you guide your image and your whole wardrobe if you're looking to update your look. So they're great for headshots, these stylists, but they're also great for your whole entire wardrobe. I couldn't help but put a plug in for them. Now, what I'm going to share next is my own personal opinion about what men and women should wear for their professional headshots. Keep in mind, we're talking about professional headshots for pharmacists. So, I first of all want to say for those watching on YouTube that my husband is not a pharmacist, but there are pictures of him in the YouTube video. I did that because I think any man looks great in a suit with a white shirt and a tie. Solid ties are probably better, but we didn't have a whole lot of those around. So my husband wore a white shirt and a blue and gray patterned tie, not a very busy pattern, just a pattern. And he wore his gray suit, white shirt, blue and gray patterned tie. And his most recent headshot, he had just the white shirt, no coat whatsoever, and a red patterned tie. It's not too busy of a pattern, but it is a pattern. Now, for women, I recommend those classic looks, the white shirt, the black blazer. But some of the other things I've done is I have worn a dressy blouse, let's call it a blouse, a dress shirt with a lab coat over it. I've also worn scrubs, dark colored scrubs, kind of like my company colors, and a lab coat as well. So, again, for women, you have different options. Okay. And men pharmacists and women pharmacists, so both kinds of pharmacists here, you can both wear a lab coat if you want. It just depends on if you want to use that professional headshot for more than work related purposes. Something to think about. Just a couple of other comments in this section. How you show up for the camera is a lot of times how people will expect you to show up for life. So keep in mind that you don't want to completely glam up. It's okay to look enhanced, but make sure that you take this seriously and present your best self, because this is the person that, if you're looking for a job, this is the person that's going to show up for an interview. This is the person that's probably going to show up for a Zoom interview or an in person interview. This is the person who's going to show up for the first day of the job. So make yourself look the way that you're going to look when you show up every day, the 100th day, the last day of work, everything. All right. Just a couple other things for gentlemen. Make sure that if you have facial hair, that it looks tidy and well kept. Now, we're pharmacists here. We're talking about professional headshots for pharmacists. Men, I love my husband, but he doesn't always think about the haircut. So I'm just reminding you, get a haircut in advance. Get your beard or your mustache trimmed. If you like a clean shaven look, make sure you shave that day. Make sure you shave well in advance of the portrait session. So if you nick yourself and you're bleeding, it stops. It happens. But, just look out for that. Things to think about. And if you are a lady like me, I color my hair. I will admit it. It not all over color, but I have highlights. Okay. And this little white part here starts creeping out right around 6 to 8 weeks after I get my hair colored. If you are a lady and you have colored hair, color your hair the week before your portrait session so that everything looks settled and well colored and well covered. Something to think about. Let's move on. Let's talk about jewelry. I recommend you keep it simple. I recommend you keep it simple because if you have a long dangly necklace and somebody crops your photo, is that going to look right? Probably not. So, what I recommend is that you have only short jewelry that goes to the base of the throat or no jewelry at all. In a lot of my headshots, I wear zero jewelry because I don't want my picture to get cropped and for something to not look right because I was wearing jewelry that didn't work well with the shot. If you're a woman, I would also not wear too busy of earrings. I tend to wear studs, either diamonds or some other sort of a stud, and that works really well for me. You do you. Again, this is my 2 cents. Take it with a grain of salt. After jewelry, let's start talking about makeup. We already touched on that. That is something that you could possibly combine with your session if your photographer collaborates with a makeup artist. We heard from Dr. Dimple Gandhi in episode 160 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast about wearing the right makeup. What do I mean by the right makeup? Well, I don't know a lot about makeup, but you are going to have flash photography done if you're getting a professional headshot. When you get flash photography, if you have makeup that contains sunscreen, it's not going to look right. So either do your homework and do your makeup yourself. So do your homework about makeup if you're doing it yourself, or hire a makeup artist. I would say at least 50% of the time I have hired a makeup artist. Moving forward, I plan to continue to hire makeup artists. It's one less thing that I have to worry about. I just dress myself, I get my hair done, and then I go in, they do the makeup, and boom, I'm right in front of the camera. It works out great for me. If you're watching the YouTube version, I've got a couple of pictures of Christina working on me. One was from a portrait session and at her studio, and one is a portrait session where she came to my in-laws' house at the farm in rural Ohio, and we had family pictures done, a 10-person family portrait shoot, and it went great. I can't wait to see all of the results. It was fun, and I definitely recommend hiring a makeup artist. Christina and I work great together. I hope you find somebody that you work well with as well. Next, let's talk about poses. If you have poses in mind, for example, you want a shot from the side, or you want a shot from the front, you want arms crossed, you want hands on hips, whatever it is that you want. If you have something in mind, please share that with your photographer. They are not mind readers, and just don't be disappointed because you have an opportunity to provide input before the session begins. And also, I want to caution you that if you want a variety because you don't know what's your good side, you don't know what pose is going to look best in a professional headshot, give yourself some grace and let them take the reins. My professional headshot photographer, Josh, also did my husband's photography for his professional headshot. He is a mechanical engineer, and he did a great job cooperating with Josh. Now, Nathan, that's my husband. I don't know if he would like me saying this, but a lot of the poses he had to try made him feel kind of awkward because he had to lean in or lean away or fold his arms or move his shoulders a certain way. It is not hard, people. I'm just saying, I love my husband, but he has his own opinion. But here's the thing, you have to let them take the reins. Don't be a control freak. Just do whatever they say. They often know how your body's going to look really good. For example, your neck will look really thin if you're looking up or if you stick your neck forward. Just do whatever they say. They have your best interests in mind. They want to make you look great so that you come back again and again and also refer your friends. So I just want to encourage you to just act like a supermodel, have your day in the portrait studio. It's going to turn out great. Let's move on to talking about a copyright release for your photography. This is not something that your photographer will know to give to you. This is something you need to ask for. It's just a piece of paper and it lets you legally reproduce that picture, whether you're printing it out, putting it on a website, sharing it on social media, or whatever. Some of my professional headshots and branding photos have ended up on the calendar that I give as a gift to my parents and my husband's parents, and that we make for our family. They look great. So why not put them on a calendar, right? But anyways, your photographer's not a mind reader. If you need this document, please ask at the time of your photography. If it is an additional charge, make sure you find out about that. Now, as somebody who's being photographed, I don't want to put it out there that I'm willing to pay for a copyright release. But if they do charge for it, then I definitely would like to, do that deal. I need to be able to share my images. So far, my photographer has not charged extra, but then again, I do pay a large sum for my photography because, like I said, usually it's my headshot, my husband's headshot, our family photography, and makeup too. So we do spend a pretty penny with them, and I appreciate everything they do: photography, makeup, photo releases, and being so easy to work with. They're great. I love them. Hopefully, you have a great experience as well. Oh, and also, I just wanted to bring up print shops. Print shops will notice that this is not a picture that came from your iPhone. They'll know it's a professional photo. So, if you would like to print your headshots, make sure you have that copy release to give to the print shop so that they legally are allowed to print those photographs that came from a professional photographer. One last thing before we move on to the wrap up: research. When we were just getting started, I mentioned that I was sharing my experiences, and these are for individuals who may be new to professional headshots. Pharmacists who need a professional headshot and may not feel comfortable in front of the camera, just want to see how somebody else has done it. I want to also encourage you to do your own research. Research your photographer, research what you're going to wear, research what's in your makeup if you're a woman. There's a lot of things that you should look into. Have your stuff ready. The day before, have your outfit picked out. Make sure your hair is done being colored. If your colorist colors outside the lines, you do not want that showing. I have had to plan accordingly. I am a person who colors her hair. There's a lot of research you can do. Just get your needs met. Get that professional headshot that you really want. Make sure if there's a pose that you want, you have it written down. If you want a copyright release, write it down. So there's a little bit of homework to do. We're pharmacists. We love information. We love research. So just use that to your advantage and find out all those details and make all those checklists that you need to make in order to get your needs met. I'm sure you already know this, but you can Google YouTube videos or articles, blog articles about this topic: professional headshots, not necessarily for pharmacists, but as a pharmacist, I'm sure you can do that research. So just remember that's out there as well. I hope this has helped. Now let's wrap this up. Thank you for listening to or watching episode 163 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. What's in the show notes today? I've got a link to Vanity Studios in Perrysburg, Ohio. That's Josh Ball and Christina Stoller. They are my photographer and makeup artist in Perrysburg, Ohio. They do great headshots. If you're in the area, look them up. I've also got links to my social media accounts. Please feel free to reach out and connect. And I also have links to episodes 160, 161, and 162 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Those are my interviews with Dr. Dimple Gandhi, Dr. Danielle Perrodin, and Dr. Leslie Hodge. Check those out if you haven't already. If you know someone who would like this episode, please share it with them. And subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thank you again for listening or watching.